I am recording now. Now she's happy. Now she won't fight me later when she's ready to fight, I guess.
Oh my
Do we
God.
have some anger issues lingering on set, or
No, it's just we just handle our problems in one way.
We just talk to people in different ways.
Well, there's one way to solve your problems, and it's fisticuffs.
Hey, you know what? Listen, that is technically one way, albeit a very violent and hurtful method. A method, nonetheless, of communication, which is very important, as we all know. With my fellow broadcasters here. But that's good. That's good. You have a healthy working relationship.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. We don't, we solve our problems in the pit, and sometimes we got to make our own pit of just the three of us. We got to just throw arms, throw bows.
Brian and I, me eating him in the pit when he's not ready for it. That's it.
I'm usually fine with it.
He's usually ready for it.
I'm usually ready. I'm like, at any given time, she's going to kick me out of class. It's fine.
Oh man, maybe I should. Maybe I should do something for the record process with Tom. It's like you get 3 strikes, and we got to like rumble the next time, and
we got to
stream it live. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. He's my co-host, Tom Conrad, on the record process. He's just too gentle of a soul. I couldn't picture doing like any physical harm or even verbal harm in any way. I want nothing but the best things to come for him. So it would be really tough for me to do any sort of competitive thing where, that turns into like a 0-sum situation. So I don't know.
Lizzie will say it builds character.
Yeah.
Well, that is true. As the oldest, that like you gotta keep the younger ones in line.
Oh, well, my one brother's an American Ninja Warrior, and my other brother's a wrestler. So we keep each other in line.
In balance.
So what you're saying is you have hidden athletic skills that you haven't yet shared with us, right? Because what you're saying is it's probably in the DNA right now.
I'm really good at yoga.
That's honestly incredible. I'm standing here and I feel I've been standing all day, and if I go like this, I can feel how stiff I am. So I need to get better. I've had like goes at it where I've like sparred with trying to get better, but it never pans out for long term. And then I go on tour, things fall apart. It's
just
tough.
Do some like mid-show yoga. Just like stop it. Everyone, I gotta do a quick sun salutation.
Hey,
otherwise,
honestly,
it's not happening.
Let me tell you something. That is a fantastic idea. Here's why. Because the tour that maybe, we're live right now, so it's tough. I don't know which tense to speak in because depending on who's listening. But either way, the tour that we will be doing every night in February and March of 2022 is a lot of friggin' songs. We're gonna, it's like 2 albums back to back, maybe a mid-album break, yoga break, and we just
there you go.
Have someone come up, perhaps yourself, on one of the dates, and just lead a group yoga class. Where it's like, we're gonna take a quick 7 right now. We're gonna work on some box breathing, Wim Hof method, and we're gonna get nice and limber and ready for record number 2. Okay, because we don't want to cramp up when the endurance, fatigue, dehydration set in. So we got to keep those muscles in tune, in check,
loosey goosey, ready to go.
Balance. Everything's got to be in balance before we go into this next record, y'all. Yeah, that seems like a great idea. I might just do it. I would just be like, listen. I start this next record. You're not starting without me, so I'm gonna go do some like downward dogs real quick and work this lower back out.
You can do the flying frog pose if you're so nimble and can steady yourself.
I can already tell you I am not.
No.
I'm loosely familiar with that, but it wouldn't matter anyway, because right now none of my poses are looking super striking. Let me say that.
I'm neither flying nor froggy.
No.
We're going to be there. Brian and I got tickets to the Saturday night show, so we'll just be there. And instead of yelling, play this song, you cowards, we're going to say, are you doing downward dog, you cowards?
Downward dog, you cowards.
Real confused.
Okay, honestly, well, now I at least I will now know who that is.
Yeah.
When normally I'm just like, really, people? Now I'll just be like, well, I at least know who it is. It's still hurtful, and they're calling me but at least I finally have a face to go with the hurt. Whereas normally it's just like an amorphous thing where it's like, cool, must be nice to yell at me in a crowd of 2,000 people. Like, real easy for you. But now I'll know, and I'll also know where to find you.
Yeah. There we go. See.
Let's do a quick little intro here. I mean, this conversation is just flowing, so I'm just going to do a quick little intro, and then we'll introduce you, and you can talk about why you're on the pod, and we'll just do all that stuff, you know, all the stuff that you should do at the top of a pod. But whatever, we're just going to post all of this. Who cares?
We're going to start this pod like 7 different times.
Hell yeah! Look, every question we start the pod.
Rat Boy said the rest of the crowd is going to wonder why he's crying the entire time.
No one's going to wonder that. No one's wondering. Somebody's going to throw, honestly, if you think you're original by throwing in like you're not sad. I thought you weren't sad anymore reference. If that happens, just know you're not. Okay. Just know everybody is saying that to the person next to them, and it's okay. And I invite that. You just got to know, just like me, a guy that starts a pandemic mid podcast, I know I'm not the only person to do that. I think it's genuine. I would do it pandemic or not. This just happened to present me with some additional free time to really put some thoughts together and some time into it. However, again, not the only one. And I know that. Self-aware. All right, let's start this thing.
All right, starting the podcast. Welcome to the Emo Social Club podcast, broadcasting to you live from emosocialclub.tv. I am Brian.
And I'm Lizzie, and we're here this afternoon with Casey Cavaliere of the Record Process podcast and the band The Wonder Years. So thank you so much for hanging with us tonight.
Absolutely. One of those things people may be familiar with. I implore them to get familiar with both of them. It's up for you to decide which, as whoever might be listening to this. But thank you. It's already been a treat.
I know. We're going to keep us all in.
Thank you very much for having me. Love to talk, love to chat. And I'm really down for whatever. I'm keeping it open. And like Brian said, we're flowing, and we're going to keep it that way.
You know what? Let's just ride. Let's just ride it up. Just straight vibes. Right. Straight vibes in the chat. Straight vibes in the pod. We all got lights behind us. You know, we're all just glowing.
Yeah, we all got the vibe memo.
Yeah, right?
Dude. Also, how do I get into this shot?
emosocialclub.tv. Sorry, emosocialclub.tv. We have a website, emosocialclub.com. It's just that won't take you to the stream.
You're not going to see the live.
Yeah, that won't take you there.
Gotcha. I see.
Now you can check out the chat, which we probably won't talk. We probably won't talk to them too much, but you know, if you guys say something fun and cool, then we'll put it in the pod. What?
I'll let you guys are pros at that here. So I'll let you guys see it and monitor it. And if anything good comes up for us to really dig into, let me know, because I don't want to miss it.
We'll dig. We'll dig. Well, let's talk about your podcast first. You just mentioned that you started it during the pandemic. And I listened to a few clips on your Instagram and was like, yeah, this is about recording and some interesting stuff about like artist creation, music creation. And I think that's like, it's a good place to start, because I like talking about it. I like talking about it on this podcast, and I feel like it's a little bit inside baseball, but I'm also like, dude, you were spending so much time falling in love with, like, you know, you're like, oh my God, I love My Chemical Romance. They have this one song and it's like, yeah, and he does the guitar on that. And they're like, I don't care. Gerard and Frankie. That's all I care about. It's like, okay, like, but there's a lot more obviously that goes into the creation of a song, the writing of it. And I just think that's really interesting to get into that. Like, what's your thought process on it? How'd you get it started, and how'd you come up with the idea of it?
Ooh, just processes on processes. Yeah. So the thought process behind it was, pretty simple, honestly, in the sense that, myself and another really talented Philly engineer and producer named Tom Conran, and our other good bud and very talented musician, Adam Ackerman, we all kind of came together 3+ years ago and put together a space just outside of Philadelphia in Blackwood, New Jersey. And also kind of started working together on a lot of production stuff, mixing, recording, doing like some freelance, like session work stuff, really running the gamut. out of that space. And we would obviously have a lot of conversations that towed the nerd adjacent line when it comes to swooning over, records and, the, I guess everything short of just like YouTube videos of like the how to or how this got made or things like that, and just trying out new techniques, mostly because, we'd kind of go back and forth and be like, hey, check this out, be like, holy cow, like, what did you do there? And then talk about it for an hour and how and what the catalyst was. And it's like, I found it on this record and I tried to reverse engineer it and whatever, this, that, and the other. So a lot of, like you said, inside baseball from the technical end. But really what we were, figuring out is we loved having those conversations, and that even though the scope of what we were talking about in the moment was maybe something we were working on at the time, that whole idea kind of relates to any record, right? And it doesn't matter who you are. There's also a lot of perspectives that go into the record, because a lot of these records are touched by many hands, and it's in a lot of ways, to continue with the sports metaphor, a team activity, right? And a collaborative one, very much so most of the time. And we were like, well, how can we love these conversations? I feel like there's some really good stuff that is pretty interesting, not just to us, but maybe a few other people. And we kind of looked at podcasts as something that all of us, obviously we're familiar with medium, had our own favorite podcasts, some of which, delved into the creative space, some of which are in the more like business productive. Like I happen to gravitate to a lot of, self-improvement and like growth mindset podcasts. And a lot of the ones that I listened to, I realized they were like very inspirational to a creative, and really kind of find people maybe in like a valley of creativity and bring an anecdote that kind of lifts them out of it. Or especially for me, I have a few that I love to throw on. And the second, whether I go for a run, a walk, and I put an episode on, an hour later, I come back and circle back around and I am ready to dive back in. I've just got 1,000 thoughts racing. It kind of in the same way, like stepping into the shower honestly does. It's just like, all of a sudden you're just like, oh man, what am I going to do? I got so much. And then you step in the shower and you have like $3 million ideas in 5 minutes. You're like, there's nothing to write on. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get it all. You're like racing like down, down the hall. So I realized it was like, that's what a lot of these really great shows do. And the stories that they bring, whether or not it's from somebody that I know, actually, sometimes they're even better if I don't know the person, because then it gives me something on the back end to look into. We decided to try to bring that with season 2, to people in that format. But initially when we started it, it was just the 3 of us kind of walking through the entire process of making a record in the studio, based on all of our collective experiences, and a little bit educational at times, a little bit kind of discussion based, and or like, here's, there's no right way, wrong way, but here's some general, industry guiding principles that a lot of producers, artists, bands, studios use that have worked really well, in case that could be helpful. And then we got to the end of that and we were like, well, what do we do now? And it started kind of coming into view where it's like, well, we can go back through, we can get into nuance. There's a lot of ways we can go. And ultimately, we said, well, what would be really cool is the only way to kind of expand it, is to kind of dig in and narrow the scope to pick one record at a time, and get really specific, because there's so many. Every record has a different path, a different, different people, different perspectives, and a different timeline, people, places, and gear, right? So we wanted to kind of bring all of that there, but also you mentioned like the really hyper specific, like nuts and bolts of like, it in no way did we want it to live in a space where and it's very easy to get carried away because as a guitar player, a studio, I love the gear, right? I love a good Guitar Hero guitar more than anybody. If you didn't listen to the pre-roll of the convo, you won't get that, but that is an inside joke.
Gotta be at the stream, guys. Gotta be at the stream.
Gotta be at the stream. There's already so many great shows in that world fulfilling that that realm. If you want to go there to be like, what compressor do I use on a vocalist that's 6 feet 5 inches tall and has brown hair and just drank 3 cups of coffee? Like, this is not that podcast. But the same people that would listen to that podcast about gear will maybe find this refreshing because it's more about the story, in almost like a biographical sense. And we try to pull out, a little bit of the lessons that they learned and what they mean and how they might be interesting to think about and applying to, if you're a musician, your process recording, or just generally being like, oh man, I never thought about doing it that way. That's kind of cool. And a lot of these records are records that people may tune in and be like, oh, I know, I love that record, right? And what a cool thing where maybe you went this whole time, spent years with it and know that record inside and out, but never had an idea that your favorite song was the song that almost didn't make the record. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And at the last 11th hour, the singer was like, no, gotta be on there or I'm walking out. And that honestly has happened. Tune in to find out who that was. Not that they pitched a fit, but yeah, it's real, and that kind of stuff happens. And I know that I've seen that with Wonder Years stuff, and we wanted to bring those stories to people, and that is exactly what we have set out to do. And we've already done a number of interviews, and I can't wait to start getting them out and seeing what people think, because we had a blast kind of unpacking all that.
It sounds like, too, at least what we were also talking beforehand, before pre-roll, again, get to the stream early or you're missing out.
That's right,
where
guys.
You started this podcast, obviously, middle of the pandemic, and you were like, no, I would have done this either way. I just had more time. But unlike a lot of those other podcasters, you stuck with it and are still developing it into something further. So you're also a little bit of an outlier there. You're not posting everything on Facebook Marketplace saying, I spent $1,000 thinking I could do this. And I decided no.
I guess you're right.
Listening also to a couple episodes of the first season, like going back to kind of like these storytelling narratives that you kind of go off with. One of them that kind of stuck out to me, it seemed like really chaotic, was the fact that you were talking about an art installation about wolves on an island. And I had to keep re-listening to be like, am I hearing this right? How this is being told right
You know what? It's funny. You probably were hearing it right. And because that's probably something that was brought up by Mr. Tom Conran, who has a ton of incredible background stories from his time, both in school. He went to school for like acoustic science. So he actually on the side, like also quite the qualified person in the literal like space treating realm, in that he consults and does studio builds and tuning acoustic spaces as well. And so that's probably also like he's done some wild stuff like that over the years. Some of it related to just like collegiate like class projects that are like high level that yielded some really crazy results. Him that he's like shown me over the years. He's like, hey, you should check this thing out. I was like, what is this? He's like, oh, I had to do it for like a class when I was in school. And I was like, this is insane audio, and the kind of stuff. He's like, yeah. It was like a rumination, and like 50% of this stuff, I'm like, okay, I think I'm following you. I'm just glad there's no exam at the end of this. I'm trying to pick up as much as I can. So you probably weren't hearing it wrong. I wish I could give you more of the backstory. I'm trying to remember. It obviously sounds vaguely familiar. And if you hit me with the episode, I will definitely get a better answer for you and anybody that should want one. If you need more clarification, you should have, like I said, you should have gone to the episode notes and dropped a review with a question, or just hit us up.
Every time. Where are you?
Hey, you know this. I know you say this all the time.
I was just
I'm
like,
sure.
Listen, I could just come and ask him straight to his virtual face.
Well, he's going to be on the pod, you know?
Right. Well, honestly, I do love that brazenness. I do love that confidence. That's preach confidence. Preach confidence. I love it. But also, yeah, that was a while ago. So, next time, maybe just hit me up. Just ask a question, just where it says reach out, contact us, it's like, this is why, because you can just gonna send
it to your Insta DM, like from the podcast, gonna be like, yo, what is this?
That's Tell right. Just DM it to me. Just be like, hello. Wait, are we wolves? Are we talking about wolves?
Are we wolves here?
I'm gonna need more on this. Yeah.
It's like all these fans of yours, now they're just going to be like, well, I can just DM him and be like, hey, so I was listening to the podcast, and you're going to be like, I got to pay attention to this one. Hold on. And meanwhile, they're like on some other tangent. There's like, oh, you want to talk about my podcast? Hell yeah. Oh, this isn't about the podcast at all.
Yeah. Hey, that's okay. I am definitely a guy that in controlled, like one-on-one or small group situations, I'm totally down for the hang and the convo. Admittedly, I might not get there or have time every moment of the day for the convo, just like yourselves, just like hopefully anybody else that would be DMing me. It's like, if you're like, I don't know, you better be a social media marketer if your entire day is on DMs or in DMs. But yeah. So, if I don't get back with a like extremely robust novella of text, oh my God, you'll know why. But yeah, always, hey, honestly, shoot your shot. That's gotten me pretty dang far, and continues to be the case, actually, coming out of, or still in some weird way living inside this vortex that is an ongoing pandemic. I have managed to, at least to the best of my ability, try to make it something that allows me to explore and tap into some other things and create some cool momentum in the creative spaces, and a lot of things that honestly have been put on the back burner because every time I'd start gearing something up, a tour would come around and I'd be like, okay, I'll hold that idea, so it makes it a little tough. So this did give me the chance to do that, and I'm happy for that. But that's to say, shoot your shot. So I was shooting a shot because I had time on the court, yeah, I don't know. Try and go DM people. Actually, this is going off the rails.
Within reason. Within reason, DM somebody.
Totally within reason. Do not harass people. Also, this goes without saying, be nice, be courteous, be respectful, right? I'm not your parent. That's just good advice that that everybody should try to follow, right? Like if you're somebody out there that's just like, you know what? He told me I could DM him. I'm going to tell him how pissed off I am that they didn't play this like B-side that literally was never released, that I only heard exist, but somehow is my favorite song. If that's the case, don't DM me.
Everybody's limitations for DMs.
DMs are
don't be
down.
Weird.
Honestly, here's the thing. What is weird? People are weird. I say, be nice, be respectful, and also respect boundaries. If you don't understand what boundaries are, or don't know what somebody's might be, then
assume they have a lot.
Then don't shoot that shot and be cautious, right? Yeah. But when it comes to reaching out nicely and sending a cold email to somebody, hey, honestly, we talked about, and we used to joke like back in the day, talking about like the major label signing or whatever. It's just like, oh yeah, dude, it's cool. I'll just go email Mr. Geffen and he'll definitely open it. It's not going to the spam folder, right? But I love that joke in the sense that sometimes that shit works, it really and I think maybe this is speaking more towards, younger bands, artists, and or just creatives, right? It's just like, there's no harm in reaching out to be like, hey, can I like design this for you? Or like, hey, I'd love to work with you. I don't know if that's even possible, whatever, it's like, that's how a lot of things actually come together. Even if it's not right there in that moment, you might get what I like to call a soft no, right? Which is just like, not right now, but right. and or a hard no. Also, the hard no is tougher to swallow. But also, I'm never gonna give anybody like a hard and fast, like mean, like F you no. So, and I would hope that most people in the world are also not going to do that because they've been in that position of having to, having a no thrown their way once or twice. So this has really taken an interesting path.
And
about kindness and empathy. But, I like that space too.
Because I was going to say you're the True Level Studio, which is where I understand you record the podcast, and it's with your studio partners from there. It's kind of like what you do there. It sounds like guiding younger artists,
helping
mentoring. Yeah. So it sounds on that path.
You know what? It's interestingly enough, as if the pandemic didn't already facilitate enough new avenues for me to travel down. That was also another one that kind of organically and serendipitously worked its way into a new and I guess kind of growing path, interestingly enough. I think there's a lot of that in in any role, if you're in like a service-based industry, but especially in audio and music and in the creative field. I think there's a certain level of like Sherpa-ing with a client or a band specifically. And so that's like kind of a natural thing. Like I said, there's a trust thing there that you have to try and build and learn a lot about yourself and try to get to know as much as you can about the other people in the room and make everybody feel comfortable to kind of take chances or try things they normally wouldn't and kind of and grow and get the best product. So in that way, some of the things that we worked on early on when we moved into the space, it came from more of like the end of the record process, right? So the music was made, it was finished, everybody was happy, very excited, high-fiving. And then I'd get like a text or a call back, a couple weeks later, a month later, 2 months later, be like, hey dude, like we're so excited. Like we're going to, getting ready to put the record out or whatever. You got any thoughts on what the best way to go about that is? You have any ideas, right? And I don't mean to make it sound as though like, every band is clueless. That's quite the opposite nowadays. Is what is kind of what the industry is forcing the hand of, to wear every hat and then some, but it's really overwhelming. And there's a lot of resources out there, but maybe too many if you go to YouTube and type in what should I do to release my record, right?
How to be a band.
You're going to want to quit immediately. So don't do that. And if you are going to go to YouTube, as I call it, make sure you have a very specific ask and check a couple videos. And then what I say is take the amalgamation of all of those things and you will find some threads of commonality, right? However, that almost sounds like reaching out to a couple different, that sounds like it'll take time, right? That's not a 5-minute YouTube video. And then all of a sudden your drums sound mega huge, right? For all of my like DIY bedroom mixers right there. You know what I mean? Like that's a wormhole that I am very familiar with, living in a space with a lot of engineers and producers. But so back to the callback of what the hell do I do? And maybe it's not what the hell do I do? It's, hey, should I do this? Should I do this? People are telling me I should do this, right? So basically, like before pre-pandemic, I'd just be like, all right, well, you're coming in next week to track again. Why don't you just like stay for an extra hour afterwards? And we'll kind of chat through some of these things and, just put together a plan, give you some feedback, some anecdotes from how we've done it, how I've seen it done. Right. And just some best practices that might work. Right. Or things you could maybe try. Fast forward to a pandemic. Right. We're all living in this world. Right. So now it's actually interesting enough because in 2 years, it's like, I am very comfortable now staring at a screen and doing this. Whereas beforehand, it might've been like, well, unless I'm like on a stage and it's like a much different controlled environment than I'm used to, this would be feel a little foreign. It does not now because basically I looked at it and said, well, I can't have people in the studio right now while everything's locked down. What can I still do to free the time up and be productive and be helpful to artists? So it was kind of that, and a few people had reached out to me anyway, asking for kind of what it turned out to be was like a similar, relationship or, mentorship in a way. And now fast forward, it's like over the last 2 years, still working with some of them, and every scenario is different, but it's a cool thing because I think what I've learned too from doing this and working on helping people not only, come up with the material that they will ultimately put forward into the world, that will kind of, define their band sonically and musically. It's also kind of helping on the back end how there's a whole other wave of things right now in especially like the content era, so to speak, where like visually and from a different sensory perspective, there are ways that, that you can actually speak with a lot of those themes and messages. And with Wonder Years, we've tried to do some cool stuff that, over the years that's been unique or been fun for us or thought that it would be a cool shared experience with our fans, that would be kind of memorable, in different ways. So I'm trying to like take a lot of the lessons that we've learned in that way and see where some of that methodology and or different ones can kind of help a band build even further when it comes to like releasing their music and putting that out. Because I think for better or worse, it is a climate that a lot more than just a good song is being asked from a band, and that's no longer like your one like ticket, you have to put in a lot more reps and prove to the algorithm gods, I don't know, right? That you're worthy and that there's something there, but ultimately there's a human response. I think that people gravitate to musicians, and I think a lot of that, not only just a song that ends up on a playlist or, you hear about it and you're like, oh, that is cool. It's like, there's a relationship there. And I think we are now kind of floundering and readjusting in the music industry, how that is put across, right? And how that connection is instilled and why people, ultimately are going to care about you as a band and not just a single on some playlist that they follow, right? So there's a lot to unpack there, as you can imagine, which is why now I'm still doing this with a lot of people 2 years later, and are still, it's not the whole piece of the puzzle. Obviously, there's a lot more with Wonder Years and production and music making being the primary focus, and then the podcast. That is just, kind of fills the space with my availability, and is a cool way for me to kind of get fun, get creative, and also try to help some people who, much like myself, once upon a time, were very, very much struggling with staying organized and like trying to decide which way to step, like analysis or like option paralysis almost. So trying to avoid that. But yeah, so the coaching thing has been quite interesting and kind of steps off of the production stuff, definitely, because you're kind of there making each one of those micro decisions along the way as you make an album, an EP. And that's why I always say it's like that decision-making process doesn't stop once the music's done. That's kind of just this, the foundation of the house. You got to now decorate the whole thing and pull out the different curves and rooms and, and accentuate it. So
the only way to make sure that your single or your album is going to go to the top and everyone's going to hear it, Travis Barker. That's it.
Oh God.
Well, as they say, that's one way of doing it.
Yeah, however, that's one way.
That option may not be on the table for literally every band, right? And like I said, much love to Travi, an incredible entrepreneur, regardless of, his past career accolades, which I'm sure we're probably all pretty versed in, if you're listening to this podcast. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy that's got a lot of experience and perspective and some chops, right? So you can't hate that. And also, if he's putting stuff out, it's like, if for some reason you love or hate whatever it is that he's responsible for creatively facilitating, people are consuming it and it's making an impact. So there has to have been something there that, and this is why I say too, it's like often, Warped Tour is a great example with this actually. When you're younger, you'll kind of, genres and subgenres and things are all very definitive of your identity and tribe and trying to fit in, right? Especially like we're talking about like, high school and wherever it's like, and so it's very much like I love this and I hate that, right? It's very polarizing because you want to stay in whatever lane is comfortable, even though you might be switching lanes every like 6 months, right? And I think where I've begun to see this modern kind of not even like a resurgence, because I've been in it for the last 15 years. So to me, it never went away.
Right.
In that sense, as a genre, broader in the broader sense of speaking. But as there's a resurgence, I look at it with a curiosity as to say, why is this hitting? Why is it? Is it about the timing? What culturally? What are these artists doing that it, just like on Warped Tour, where I would be like, this band is like drawing massive crowds. It's terrible, but I don't but it's not up to me to define the objectivity of good or bad. It's like the proof is there. There's thousands of people going to watch this band every day for one reason or another. So this band is giving them something that they want, and something that they're resonating with and connecting with, right? Whether it's more of a social moment than it is an artistic one, that's another thing, but that's not for nothing, right? So I tend to look at it like that, and I think there are some bands out there that are doing some really interesting creative stuff, especially now. It's like it's coming back with a lot more modern tools, and you have this what actually seems to fascinate me, which is a little bit different and outside the scope of making Wonder Years records, is a lot of the like hyperpop production influence stuff. I actually
big fans of hyperpop. We are huge fans.
Oh, well, then I have to send you some stuff.
Yes, please.
It's going to be coming out with a few artists that I'm working on this year. That I think you might like and you might enjoy, because I've enjoyed like kind of putting it together, and it reaches into a lot of those other genres, but that are very like production heavy, very like very remix centric in a way that that become the genre where it's like they're all tools, but now we're talking about software being and hardware really being the tool, and or even sometimes replacing melodic elements, and in terms of a catchy, memorable thing. I think it's really fascinating, and baking that kind of stuff into it. Definitely more on that. If in any way, if you hate this, and anything that I seem to be describing, don't DM me about it.
DMs are closed for that.
DMs are closed for that one. For the haters on that one, but also definitely like follow along, and because there will be more, and I've got a couple things that are honestly really excited about ruminating on the background, like different partnerships and collaborations with some other people that are crazy talented and come from worlds where I let's put it this way, a couple of years ago I knew very little about on that end from the technical side, and now have just grown increasingly fascinated with it and how it kind of works its way into some artistic DNA and the way people kind of visualize and conceptualize songs. So I think that is ultimately a cool thing, and I'm excited to see where that goes, especially in the modern world of our genre that we've called home, the punk roots and pop punk stuff. It's just another extension of it, right? Like, what is hyper pop punk, right? Like, what is like the genre of future punk, right? Look out, who knows, right? I'll see you like there 2025 when it's literally dominating or something.
Go. I feel like it's like bringing kind of like that Cobra Starship sound, like that neon pop back, but like reworking it in different ways. Yeah. And I feel like that's just like the scratch everybody who's been looking for, like to itch, is like, this is what I want. I've been missing it. It blends everything together for this really like party aspect, but also this like not like hardcore music, but like in that same vein of like, oh, like I could go hard to this.
Yeah. Oh man, I just got sent a track today that you guys will love. I can't let you hear it until I get finished cutting up the vocals. But I let me put it this way: I know you know the song. But anyway, so yeah, more. Let's suffice to say more on that very soon in all of these worlds. But I definitely. I don't dislike what I see from Mr. Barker in the entrepreneurial sense. I think every music is cyclical, so that's not his fault. He's just the guy that's like has the experience and has the reps and can do the guiding and maybe get some artists that already have a platform through there. And if you're out there and you're a hater because you are not going to like what I say when I have come to terms with, and I don't hate influencers either. I don't hate influencers that become artists. Let me say that, right? I think there's a lot of hate on that. And my thought on it now, sometimes it's vapid and there's not a lot of actual substantive artistry going on and happening. And my thought is that will ultimately become clear, right? People will realize that they are not the driving force behind it by the way they show up and support it. And they'll be like, okay, cool. They're good at this. They're good at being an artist and a pop star. But like, we know, like, they're not in there at the drawing board crafting all of these hits, note by note, effect by effect. Right. And with that, I just say, Spotify, get your shit together and put producer and engineer credits up, please. What? And also, and just like in general, like, I granted I sit on that side of the glass now too, but I think nowadays more than ever, there are a ton of people doing really compelling, great work to make your band sound good, even though you might not be hyper polished just yet.
Yeah.
And they're being underpaid and undercredited for it. And exposure is not a currency, so just keep that in mind. And I especially if it's a friend that's, helping you out, whether it's photos, photography, it's like those creatives, like you might not realize it. And it might hurt a little bit to scrounge up an extra couple $100 between the band right now. But like, just know that if that's a person that you care about and they show that they are caring about you, that's going to make a world of difference. And that might mean that they're in that chair, that they're not sitting in, we were talking about this earlier, that they're not sitting in like a metal folding chair at a desk in their bedroom 10 years from now, that they are, in a nice studio making a record with you that's going to sell a ton of copies with a lot nicer gear, right? So it's a relationship in the same way. It's like you want to treat that right from the start and show up. But yeah, so I think that's also very important. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think that like there's a lot of conversations about whether bands are going to continue or if it's going to be like solo artists, and whether their names are like, Panic at the Disco is one guy now, but it's like, is it going to be a group of 5 guys in a room writing songs together? Or is it going to be one dude with a laptop in his room? And to me, it's like, dude, I'm going to listen to both if it's good. I'm not going to care like, some guy didn't write the guitar to this. I'm not going to be like, well, then it's not music. This sucks, because I'm an adult and I understand that having that sort of tribalism about music is not worth it anymore. It's just, if something's good, it's good.
We've gone out of that meme phase of saying like, oh, look at how many people need to write like Beyonce song. Oh my God, look at how many people wrote a Bring Me the Horizon song. Like we've outgrown that for the most part.
Right. And I think it's like the proof. I mean, if we want to talk about like grandmother sayings, the proof is in the pudding. Like if it hits you and that song's great, why can't that song just be great? Why does it have to be great with a qualifier? It's like, it's great, but like, it sucks that they can only write that because it's whatever. It's just like, whatever. They like put the reps in to get to a position where they could do that. And now, like, if you like the song, aren't you grateful that was the trajectory that brought you that song? Unless they're like maniacally evil and like trying to like do something, it's like, and Bezosing their entire genre or something.
Is that a verb now? Is Bezosing a verb?
It.
Probably. I don't.
You can make it a verb now.
I think
That's
I just
what it
did.
is.
Yeah.
It's done. It's done.
I think it's done.
Submit it to Urban Dictionary. Write our own thing.
Oh, it's being submitted.
I got to stay away from Urban Dictionary. I had plenty of time with that in high school. But no, I mean, truthfully, I like Bezosing. I like just be happy that just enjoy the art and like let it, if it resonates with you, it does. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Not everything is made for everybody. And I think that's actually the most important thing to remember if you're a musician, and make something that is at first and foremost for you and, like from your like heart, the story. And then that's actually, by being more specific, that's actually how you get a deeper resonance that comes out of a song. So it's like, if it takes 30 people to screw that light bulb in, but they get it right, then they get it right. Also there's a lot of times where 30 people will definitely get it wrong. And it's just like 17 producers trying to like do production kick flips, like over one another. And you're just like, oh, right, there's a vocal in here. It's like a garage band mentality where I was just talking about this with somebody else. So it's like, you go into pre-production, just like, you gotta turn the guitars down. I know you don't want to hear that. And I know I sound like your dad, but you can't hear the vocal. Aren't you writing songs right now? That vocal might actually be doing something that you can play off of and make the song better, So I don't know. It's kind of that's how it's my like, the perspective, but also going back to I have no shade at all for that person that is just, and I say just, it's like sometimes there's a spark that needs to come and can only come from one person in a certain way. Mm-hmm. Now they might not take it like all the way around the bases. And that's the other thing. It's like, if they're good, they will realize, hey, I can write a really good song. I can't mix it. I need somebody that can really do it and take it home. Or I can start a song and I know an idea and I can see a mood, right? But I need help with someone finding the way to refine it and capture it. Or I have all these really great pieces. I'm unsure that the structure is the most compelling and impactful that it could be, right? And maybe you don't know where to go. Or maybe you're writing a bunch of songs, putting them out, nothing's really happening, and it's because nobody around you is telling you that they're not good, and that they need to be better, right? And that also is sometimes an important thing. We've had plenty of people. Are you kidding me? I'm sure a ton of people are still saying everything we put out is awful, and that's okay. That's their opinion, and it is valid to them because it's not for them, But I will say, what is very cool right now about all that is in the like very deeply in the bedroom producer world, right? Where it enables people that if they are dedicated enough to workshop and learn and put tools at their disposal, I'm producing somebody right now. I mean, I won't mention the project yet, but I was, when I brought it on, I was like, and this is a testament too, to like not being elitist as engineers, producers, and realizing this is the scope of what music sounds like. If it sounds blown, it's like, it really, at the end of the day, doesn't matter how good a mix is if it gets the point of the song across, right? Mm-hmm. A mix is only a thing for someone that they want to like knock it, or, hey, maybe you had a good song, but maybe the mix is flat. It could have been twice as good, right? Things like that. I have a client right now that brought me songs. I was like, oh, I love these demos. These are great demos or whatever. And then started working like remotely, sent me the session. And he's like, I was like, so what DAW do you work in? For audio people with Sammy, this will be done in 10 seconds. I'm in. Do you work in Logic? Do you work in, Pro Tools, Cubase, or whatever? Just thinking about transferring sessions, to start working through stuff remotely. And he's like, oh no, I don't have any of that. I just work in GarageBand. Right. And to anybody that is in that world, it's like, that's a stock, software application that comes on all Apples, even like, the cheapest, like, Apple you can get. And that's like a thing where the most people are like, oh, well, that's for like recording podcasts and just doing like, demos or whatever. It's just like, no, he had recorded full on sessions that I was listening to. I was just like, no, this is vision. This is awesome. It has a cool vibe. And I had to transfer them over to Logic, and then they'll go to Pro Tools for me. But I was like, that doesn't matter. That didn't stop him from sitting there, putting the time in and knowing what he wanted this to sound like. Now, sure, like it can be taken a little bit further, but it's just like, it shouldn't matter. He shouldn't have to like have a team around him and have super nice gear to legitimize the song and the time that he's putting into a great song. And that, for me, I noticed that immediately. I was like, this song is great. If you're writing this song, I want to work with someone that's writing it. Everything else we can figure out together. But that's a testament to, I think, where we are now. That's why I kind of just like said, I'm not buying any more gear until I actually like move. I just moved to Atlanta. All the gear is like at the studio. So I'll be bouncing back and forth, obviously, between Philly and Atlanta a lot. But like, until I set up, a finalized home base and do a build down here in Atlanta, I was like, I'm not going to buy any outboard gear. I need something I condensed to just a mobile rig that I need to be able to like take and go for, a month when we're in LA recording a record and just set up in a bedroom, be able to do things like this, which this is exactly what those remote production sessions look a lot like. And it's just going back and passing sessions back and forth and, over Zoom and things like that. But, that's, I think, where we are. And I think anybody that's like trying to play they don't have the gear, they don't have the tools, I think that's a cop out. And I think that, it's already very apparent, but it's kind of like the tools are upstairs, so to speak, for all those listening. There's a head point there.
Pointing at head.
Pointing at head. So, I mean, and that's kind of like I think the philosophy that best suits where I'm at right now.
I mean, it makes sense, though. Like, it's so much more accessible for people. I mean, you had the GarageBand era. Then again, you could just, if you have a Mac, you can just use that. You don't have to worry about, getting Pro Tools, getting a Linux system. You can just go and do it as long as you have that creative drive and mindset to do so. And also, if like you just said, if I need a producer to help fix it up, cool, we do it. But also, there's just people out there who can make magic on their own and do very well for like the amateur new music standard that people are looking for, and it's hitting still.
Right. And that's because I think the underlying song and story and value of it is because they're getting right and they're finding something that hits right. Now, the difference is at a certain point, they probably will have, they might have somebody be like, hey, have you considered doing this? Have you considered doing that? Right now, I would hope that they would, in true like artistry fashion, continue forward with some sort of growth mindset. Right. Not saying that they have to, not saying if it's broken, if it's not broken, go try to fix it immediately every chance you get, but more just saying like acknowledging and seeing where you can push boundaries and where you can go, and seeing if something could be better. I think that's just, a general like creative and entrepreneurial mindset where it's just like, can something be better, and asking yourself that question and having that kind of skepticism about whatever you do, whether it's art or whatever, and treading that delicate balance without falling into the trap of perfectionism,
I think people would be mad at us if we didn't talk about the Wonder Years. So let's just not talk about the Wonder Years because I don't care how people feel. No, but
don't DM me about this.
Don't DM.
Don't nobody DM about
honestly,
it at all.
Wait, this is a great thing. It's like we can continue talking about whatever you want, but maybe just DM me about the Wonder Years if you want.
Okay, yeah. You guys DM me. I'm gonna DM him about the Wonder Years.
We're actually just DM the podcast. One of us will get it. We'll filter it through,
and we'll DM down the lane, and we'll get. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's just a real middleman podcast. Post podcast,
all middlemen, no beginning or end. Yeah.
So, did our friends in Safeface RB Road DM you guys then to be on this Wonder Years tour?
Oh no,
upcoming tour along with Gammy Gang and Spanish.
Oh no. We the Safeface crew has been on the radar for quite some time. Mm-hmm. We've known Ty for a while. He's feeling like he's been like floating around, and we've known. He's shown me early stuff. Actually, hell, before he even made the new Safeface record, he came down to Philly. We hung out and listened to like some My Chem really fucking loud and just talked about where he saw, you know, the band in that project going, and it was really cool. And yeah, just, I mean, super proud of everything they're doing, the honesty. And if you somehow haven't seen them live, then I mean, fine, leave early, leave after a half record, leave after one record of us, or don't watch it all, but come and watch them if you haven't seen them. Because it's a show and the songs are so cool, and it's such a performance. And he's always been a performer, and I'm so glad that it's finally like on this second record that you know, the people are into it, and I feel like it's kind of ascended to a new aesthetic that's really fitting where he and the band as a whole I think feel comfortable and really at home, which is awesome to see. Just as a fan. So yeah, no, there was no, I mean, there have been DMs between myself and him, many of which, and text messages and other mediums, and even in-person talking, if you remember that.
No idea. But, how do you do it?
I forget. I'd clam up. I don't know. Yeah. But so we are very excited to have the Face Savers.
The Face Savers.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about like the resurgence, and obviously being that you've been in the scene this whole time and have done it for so long. And I know you guys have played Riot Fest, and we've had Riot Fest here in Chicago. So many years of just like these old bands, old being in quotes there, because it's like 10 years is that old? Yes, because I'm 100.
Yeah.
It's like this resurgence, like, oh man, how cool is it that they got like these bands to like reunite and play these albums, and now you're going out and you're playing 2 albums on a tour. So I guess that like it kind of fits in with the idea of like the resurgence and the nostalgia of it, of playing full records on a tour. Was there any thought process about like why these 2 records now, why this tour now? Was there any thought about that when you were planning it?
They turned 10, and that's
there we go.
Nice, well-rounded number. Didn't anticipate the pandemic, so now they're 12. You know, that's how
still,
it goes.
It's an even number.
Yeah.
Right. Also another even number, you know, It was all by design. No, the year 2 of the pandemic was not by design. I mean, that was about it. You know, we saw a lane for it. We knew we wanted to do that. We've done album shows before. You know, we've, and this was, and we've done long set list before. I don't think ever anything that is this many songs in one sitting or standing. But I mean, that was quite frankly, it was the 10-year anniversary, and we were like, well, we want to do something big. And we knew we wanted to, you know, those records, you know, were coming up. We knew we were talking with Hopeless. We knew we wanted to repress. So we did, you know, for anybody that missed it, we did a deluxe reissue, and did like 2 new tracks where we kind of went back to some old demo fragments that we had and resurrected them and finished them with our like modern perspective of a band, which was a really cool result. And I love both of those songs, Out of My Feet and Breakless. And we'll probably play some of those. I don't know, from night to night, you know, we'll kind of rotate it up to keep it, you know, in true, like, roll the dice fairness, because there's a lot of requests, some of which have found their way into DMs, and, you know, but, that was about it. Yeah. Was the 10-year, and then the release had us feeling it. So we were like, hey, let's plan for this so we can actually do it right. And it was an interesting thing because both of those, the re-release and of Upsides and Suburbia, kind of came out so close together that we were like, well, we know that we won't be able to do, you know, a Suburbia tour, you know, because we'll already be into another album cycle and things like that. So we were like, both? You know, and then the answer was yes.
Yeah.
We just couldn't find a compelling enough no. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you see like a lot of bands that are doing the now, you know, 12-year tours. Like I just saw Motion City kept like crossing out the number on their tour poster. It's like 12 years. Yeah. Okay.
They're like, one day we'll get there.
One day we'll see you on this record.
Yeah.
And
so heartbreaking too that they had to
I know.
Postpone that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting, like the the different decisions around like doing, some bands will do like an album show in like their hometown. And then it's like, yeah, this is the one, we're going to do it at a big venue or do it like that, or do a whole tour. And I'm always just interested in like, there's bands like Fall Out Boy who's like, we're not doing that shit. Like we're not doing the 10-year, 15-year anniversary of these records, even though everyone on the planet would buy tickets to that show.
Oh yeah. It would be first of all, it would be a bloodbath to get those tickets.
Yes.
Hundo B.
Yes. But like, there are obviously bands that are trying to find their niche in the music industry now. And there are bands that are like, my niche was this record. We love this record. We are still passionate about it. And we know that there are audiences that are still passionate about it and are just finding it. Like there are audiences that didn't hear it 10 years ago. And there are audiences that have fallen in love with it over the past 10 years. And most bands, I assume, are not going to play like their old albums like on their new tours when they have a new album out. And it's trying to find that balance of like, how do we please the fans? How do we find where we want to go? How do we grow in this industry? And how do we also help them grow with us? Like without just going back to the old shit all the time.
Right. I think it's interesting too that, for us, it was kind of clear and wasn't that far of a stretch because we've always been a band that tries to, in some way or another, present a cohesive vision in the album sense, right? Where I think you're getting obviously a lot less of that nowadays in this genre where it is much more streaming driven, single driven, especially from an artist standpoint. It's like, hell yeah. It's like a lot of ways, if you're a brand new artist, does it make sense to spend an entire year in a budget doing a record? And then after one day, people are like, yeah, I listened to like 3 songs. Now it's out, curating the journey and their way into like understanding you in a slow way is a little different. For us, these albums were far and large, even before streaming was where it is now, were kind of digested as a whole piece of work in a lot of ways. Sure, some songs stand out and some, there's some favorites but for us, this is an extra special moment. Like I said, we try to like do things, so it's more than just, hey, here's an anniversary. I guess we could just do the record. It's like, no, it's nice to be able to play it front to back because a lot of our fans have experienced it front to back and are so familiar with it in that way. And there's an anticipation. There's a cool thing, even for us playing it, we get to go back and be like, cool, all of these like transitions, the song order, the overall momentum and energy that it carries. We get to go kind of relive that as we play it too, which is really neat because you never really do it that much, that seamlessly. Or if you do it at rehearsals or reps, it's like, you're okay, do a couple songs. All right, take a breather, try it again. But like, this is like truly like the closest thing you get to just like fully turning on an album, but then seeing the whole thing played live and all of those little nuanced moments that kind of connect the lyrics, the musical moments, the energy, with the whole show. Like, that was kind of for us a no-brainer, where some other bands, sure, it might be a little different that, and that's also not saying you have to have a full blown, like, concept record to be allowed to do an album show. But for us, that was kind of the reason why I think we felt like it was okay and maybe warranted doing not one, but both, because both of them were kind of digested as albums by a lot of our fans. So instead of just being like, cool, the greatest hits from just these 2 records and then some stuff, it's like, let's give the full journey, so to speak. Because I think that's something that we've come to know that our fans really appreciate. So we're going to do it.
Yeah. It's just
we are gonna do it.
It's happening. It's booked.
You may have to take that yoga break, but it's gonna happen, and
that's
it's gonna
right.
go down.
That's right. 10 years ago, we didn't we didn't think about the yoga break, but now maybe
consider
maybe yoga break. Yeah.
It's very nice to hear that you're thinking about the fans, and I'm gonna throw Fall Out Boy into the bus again.
Wow.
That's right. We care about their circulation and the chakra energy.
Haven't seen one Fall Out Boy yoga break.
Yeah, never.
No.
Yeah.
We have seen
they're doing it all backstage all day. Pete's doing it all day long.
Come
backstage.
on, Pete.
Oh,
Show us your yoga moves.
By the time he gets on stage.
That's actually the only way we can access it is through that NFT that they have.
I'm gonna do it.
That's true.
I'm gonna do it.
That's true.
Yeah.
NFT yoga
NFT is just his favorite yoga positions on a cube.
You just roll it like a dice, and it's like, all right, that's what I got to do, and that's how I'll be Fall Out Boy.
Dude, 5 days in a row, the same one. I hate this frog.
Damn it. This is the dumbest frog.
God, it hurts so much.
This was like the fastest hour, I feel like, of a recording. Great. So we are going to continue talking to Twitch, talking to everybody over in chat. Before we do that, we'll wrap up the recording part of the podcast. Do you want to give plugs? Do you want to tell everybody where they can find the podcast? If there are tickets left to go and see your tour, any of that good stuff, where can everybody find it?
Yes, I will shamelessly do all of the above.
Do it.
Let's see. So we will start with the tour because that's what we've just been talking about. There are still tickets left for some shows. I don't know by the time this goes out, or even if you're listening on Twitch. Truthfully, I know every band says this, and it feels like a tired record, but it really is like this is like a thing where it's just like there are some shows that like if you sleep, it just they will be sold out, and I wish that wasn't the case. It just is because that is the nature of the beast when it comes to touring and trying to put things in a room that, we know that we like and try to curate the best possible experience. And that is why we don't want you to miss out. So to the most dedicated and the most intrigued by that proposition, you can go to thewonderyearsband.com or the Wonder Years Band on socials, whatever, and you will find your way to the tour dates section of a webpage like that. And I'm sure you'll know what to do from there. For the podcast, similar yet slightly different. On Instagram, I'll be checking those DMs. So you will want to follow along and we will start gearing up. And it's just a static splash right now. But as we start rolling out interview episodes and much more of that stuff, it's also like, honestly, really cool. Some giveaways, some contest stuff in the works. So yes, with honestly some pretty cool stuff that if I was just like, I don't know, I'd follow a podcast for that. Like this is actual like real stuff. And because I think I've been kind of approaching, some companies that we work with, both in the studio and with Wonder Years with the idea of like, hey, this is really cool. I would like to put this in front of people if they don't know about it because it fosters creativity or helps with something in that arena that, that we talk about on the show a lot. So you can find that on Instagram at The Record Process, or and you can also reach out to us through there, or you can go to truelevelstudio.com, which is the studio that we speak of and production company. And you can find info on The Record Process there, as well as my personal website, which is just my name, Casey Cavaliere, with a .com at the end of it. And then there's I don't know, if you want more like a picture or two of me, and or if you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. There's more on some of like the mentoring like stuff and development stuff there. Although I probably won't be picking back up on that until after the tour, most likely. But if you are interested, reach out. That's either there or through the studio website as well. And that's about it. Did I forget anything?
When can we expect season 2 of your podcast?
Yes. To come out? Well, again, shortly, very shortly. February. Things are being edited and polished right now, and just waiting on a few last minute things. But yeah, very like that's why I say now is like a good time to get in the fold and be like, if you want to subject yourself to a show like this, which I do almost daily with other people's shows. So you'll want to kind of like tune in and set some reminders for like first week of February, but there will be stuff rolling out before then that'll, give more insight and tease some things we have and explain a little bit more. So yeah. So look out for that in the next couple weeks for sure. But, and episodes will start dropping in February. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Get teased, y'all. I don't know if that's what you want to
say that out loud, Brian.
Yo, guys, get teased, bro.
Someone put that on a shirt right now.
Come on, get yourself teased or whatever. Okay, we will continue.
Are we in trouble? I think we're in trouble, Brian.
I hope so.
Oh my God.
You know what? That's how you learn.
Is that what's going to be on the anime emo social club girl?
Don't
t-shirt?
Look. This is on recording. We don't want to tease them either. We will continue the conversation over on Twitch. But Casey, this was literally just so like good and fast that I'm like, yeah, we're go listen to us on Twitch if you haven't, because you're gonna miss probably a lot more good stuff. That's all I got.
Also, again, we can't reiterate enough. This is why you got to show up early to Twitch.
Gotta show up early.
If you're listening to this in post, you miss some fun times, some really genuine banter, some spirited banter. And now, if you're listening to it in post, you're gonna be like, "No, I missed it. What were they? I could have gone."
Yeah,
this is why you want to do it. So,
and it would have been free flowing. I went ahead, edited out certain things. You wouldn't have to hear other ads that we put in. So you're Boo Boo the Fool right now if you're not coming through.
That's right. You can't hear my ums and likes. Maybe some of those are gone. You probably want those.
I'll keep them in for the YouTube video.
No, don't take them out. No, it's real. Keep them in. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? This is authentic.
If it adds to it, it stays.
Yeah. Well, Casey, for the podcast, thank you for being on.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.